what differences have you noticed about how Black people were portrayed in pop culture when you were younger versus like now? Like in TV shows and stuff
Okay.
or cartoons.
Well, what the hidden things are. Okay, it's right now. Back then, they could just do things for you with no repercussions about it, and that kind of thing. They can't do that now. They don't do it in the same way. Let's say, okay, I can physically do some stuff. You can see it like they used to be able. If I was back then when I was a youngster, if I talked to a white girl or something like that, they could take me and hang me like that. Well, they don't do that now. In okay, but the feeling, they call it Jim Crow type stuff, where you're still out there. That is still there, but it's not physically identified the way it used to be. They like the Ku Klux Klan and all those people could just come in your face and just run. Well, they do something. It still hasn't went away, and it's just they found a way. The black people have been persecuted and messed over all their lives and all our lives or whatever, and you couldn't have many positions of authority and leadership and all these kind of things. But they do have some people that are doing that right now too. But the feeling is still there, okay, in terms of you being black or people of color and stuff like that. Uh, and right now it's in a position where I think people are afraid instead of being people that are macho and the fear of a black person is there now. It's people fear black people because they anytime anytime a black person is given an opportunity, I mean anytime, he'll rise to the top. He always rises to the top. And what happened was when the President Barack Obama became president, that really messed this country up because black people ain't supposed to be that way. They're not supposed to be like that. This country ain't ready for just like having a woman for president or something like that. They're not ready for that kind of stuff because they're trying to keep their position, that Western position, the white position, I should say, okay, just to call it what it is. But you got a president like Donald Trump, okay, and he's not qualified to be president in terms of what our Constitution says, okay. But he doesn't even pay attention to that. And now the Supreme Court has authorized him to to be the dictator that he want to be, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of stuff like that that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and people, you talk about color and all this kind of stuff. Uh, like I know your father's white and your mother's black, okay? But what would happen back in the day, you would be just pushed aside completely. You have no privileges or nothing, just because your mother is white, I'm black, okay? But now, see, in this country, there is, like you're a mulatto, they call you mulatto, okay? But the thing about it is the country is becoming like that. People of color, and they don't want, no, they get rid of all the programs that have allowed blacks to accelerate because most black kids can't afford to go to college, they can't afford to do this and whatever. But now you're finding that a lot of you can. Okay, you're going to college, and there's a lot of, and especially the women. The women, the black women in this country is really something else. Okay, and that kind of thing. And so they don't like that. They call it DEI, and they're trying to get rid of every black person that's in power. They're trying to get rid of them. They have gotten rid of them in a lot of ways. And any people that are black, they push them aside right now. That's going back to the Jim Crow area where they're trying to do that. And because they're afraid, if you notice that Kamala Harris, okay, when she debated Trump, she just she made him look stupid the way he is, okay. But what did they do? They didn't they didn't elect her as president.
Yeah.
Why? Because he go there and tell all these what he's doing and what he's saying and doing and all this kind of stuff, and people want to believe that. They want us to believe. They don't. And right now they're trying to find a way to keep him in power. Okay, they're gerrymandering and all this kind of stuff. They're trying to keep him in power. And if the Senate is maintained by the GOP and the House is maintained by the GOP, he might be running president again because of what's going on. He and if the country becomes a dictator type ship, and he can just dictate whatever he wants, just like with these Irish people. He's taking people that's been here for working hard and all that, and just disrupting their families and everything like that. All these kind of things that's going on. And this guy, the thing about it, what I'm doing is not really correct, okay? But the thing about it is that as a religious person, a person who follows Jesus and all that, we're supposed to honor the leadership of the country and all this kind of stuff. We're supposed to do that as a believer. And because God is the one that allows him to be in that position. And he's in that position for some reason that I'm not aware of, but God knows why he's there. Okay. Now, what the message is that I don't know. I have an indication that he's trying to tell the American people something, that you're not living up to what your Constitution says. Okay. So this is just all my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what I'm saying right now is the guy is getting away with all the kind of stuff that he does sexually and all these other kind of stuff. He's getting away with it, and people don't seem to mind. But they take somebody like Barack Obama and they try to demoralize him and everything like that too. It's just so. What we're supposed to do is have faith in Jesus Christ, that He knows what He's doing and that kind of stuff. And so this might be a test of our faith. That you just be patient. I'll take care of what is going on like that. But you suffer for that. You'll suffer for it. You don't get the support that you need, and other people. Like you want to go to college, you can't afford it, but you can get these grants and all this kind of stuff. Now you're gonna try to cut that out and that kind of thing. Well, make it hard for you,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. So, that's just stuff that you you think about, and you get all this talking all this stuff. But I get to talking about all this kind of crap. But it just is it's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
And that kind of stuff.
And it's okay because that was one of the other questions. You answered it, so
What
that's
was
more than
that?
okay. I was just gonna ask about like your opinion on like the last 10-20 years with Trump and Obama and stuff. And you
Yeah,
had
well,
that, so you're
I
good.
just read an article this morning
Mm.
where Barack Obama went to Canada or somewhere, or England. He went to England, to do a speech, and they wanted to prosecute him for that. Talking about, talking about he was out of his position. He ain't no dignitary. He ain't supposed to be. They calling him president and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, and then you got this president wanting to spend $1 billion of taxpayer money to fix the ballroom. And then he got a golden statue, a gold of himself, putting his name on all these buildings, putting his name on dollar money and all this kind of stuff. Well, what is that all about? See? But it can't go on. And now he's started a war that he can't get out of. Those Iranian people, when you start learning about religion and all this stuff, where it came from, those people fighting religious wars. They've been fighting them over there ever since uh, Adam, I mean, Sarah and Abraham messed up. Okay, do you know that story?
I don't.
Well, God told Sarah was barren. She was in her 70s or 80s or something like that, and he told her that she was going to have a kid, and she didn't believe him. So she had her husband Abraham sleep with Hagar, and they have a son named Ishmael, but he wasn't the promised son. But when she did get pregnant, she had a son named Isaac, who was the promised son. And he is the father of the Jewish nation, the Hebrews, the Jews. And those are the people that Jesus is Jesus's people. They were supposed to be the example of the world and how to live for Jesus and all that, but they failed too. But the thing about it is that the Jews, you heard the Jewish people, they are God's people in Israel. They're in Israel. They got some of them in Israel. They got other people there, but that's who's going to prevail in the end times, is the Jewish people. Okay, so that's what those fights have been about over there. Ishmael is the father of the Arab people, all those different nationalities of the Arabs. He's the father of those, and Isaac is the father of the Jewish people. So that clash had been going on ever since back then, 2,000 years. And Iran is Ishmael people, like, and they fighting over there and everything. And so they hate Jews. They hate them. And so now the president with Netanyahu, he's a Jew. He talked president into doing all this crazy crap that he's doing now, and stuff like that. And I don't know if you're aware of what happened in October 7th, a couple of years ago, where those the Jews, the Arabs.
October 7th?
Yeah, back in it was about 2 or 3 years ago when they killed all those people, and they you remember? You don't remember that?
I don't remember.
Huh?
I don't remember. I was in high school. I don't know if I would have learned about that. Like,
Yeah, you should have known. It was when they was having a concert or something back over there, and these people they came over and confiscated, or you know what they call them when you take people and put them in prison or something, or hold them
concentration?
hostage. They kept them and made hostages out of them.
Oh,
You ever heard of that? You didn't hear about the people that were hostages?
maybe. Maybe. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
yeah. Well, that happened. Okay, but and those were the people, and that's what Israel's been bombing and all that kind of stuff. They were bombing the place and all that kind of stuff over there, the Gaza Strip and all that. That's over in Israel. That's in the Middle East there,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff. Well, see now. Netanyahu is the guy in charge of Israel right now, and he's fighting all these different nationalities around there. and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so right now that's where it is. And now the United States is on same him and Yahoo, not Yahoo or whatever his name is, but they combine and Trump is trying to talk about Israel. Iran is don't need a nuclear weapon because Iran is going to blow up somebody and over there, that kind of stuff. But that kind of thing. So it's a lot of going on in that respect. You might just take a glance at it, just to get an idea of what it is. But this country is in how much you pay for gas now?
My last tank was like almost 70 or something. It was
Right,
insane.
gas is $5 a gallon
It was
or more,
six.
huh?
Six.
Six, yeah, $5 to $6 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
See, and you know why that is?
The Trump.
Huh?
Trump. And the war.
Because Trump started a war with Iran, and they have area they call the Hormuz Strait, and Iran is controlling that. They're not letting people go transport oil and stuff because most of those countries over there produce a lot of oil, and that's what they're like Saudi Arabia and all them other people there. But they can't get the oil here now,
Mm-hmm.
and then fossil fuel and all that kind of stuff. So now people are trying to take advantage of that. The Americans, they're a capitalistic society anyway, so
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But so anything.
Do you feel like religion slash God has helped you deal with the struggles you face as a Black American? If so, how?
Most definitely. Until this day. Even here in San Diego, um, years back, I was called the N word. And just because um, this lady wanted me to, I was passing by her car and she wanted me to open the trunk of her car and I refused. So she called me the N word and cursed me out. Hmm.
How do you feel like religion has helped you do that?
Because I had to stay grounded. I'm a prayer. I pray a lot. And I feel like this was keep me going and I read God's word. So I felt like this. Because I know me, I'm very high maintenance and I can get I can get upset. And sometimes I do get out of control when especially when it comes to someone calling me the N word, my children or my grandchildren. I think for me, myself, if someone, you know, I don't like that N word. I don't like being called a monkey. And um, I don't like the word color. And those three words that will set me off like you won't believe. Um, I don't tolerate that. And my emotions go real high when those words are being called to. So yeah.
That's definitely understandable. Um, what differences have you noticed in how Black people are portrayed in pop culture in the 50s and 60s versus now? Like, have you, um, how Black people were in like shows and movies and
Well,
stuff like that?
it lies portrayed as lies even until this day. Sometimes it really irritates me when I see a TV program or a movie or something and it's not true to what you know it is. There's a lot of lies that has been told. Black people are smart. They have done many things. They have created many things. And forgive me for saying this, but white people have taken it to be theirs when it they did not create it. And it's a shame that younger black people, children, don't know this because it's not being told. It's not in the books. It's not,
Okay. Um, how did it feel like when you were younger and you saw black people being portrayed in the way that they were? I know that cartoons and shows were like a lot more blatantly racist back then. How did it feel like seeing that be an example?
When you mean when I was like younger, like in before my teenage years and that.
Yeah, like just before you had kids, maybe before you're married.
Well, I didn't like it, but back there in those days, there weren't too much that you can do about it. You just, kind of just go on. Although I have always been outspoken, and um, I was the type that just would let it be known, no matter who it was, if it, you know, didn't sit right with me.
Um, what political achievement for Black Americans in your lifetime stood out to you the most or gave you the most hope?
Ah, affirmative action, affirmative action. Now they're trying to take that away, or has taken it away. It. I remember when women, black women, were able to vote. That was very special. I remember that. I remember it was exciting. It was exciting. And I remember politicians, especially the Democrat, and would come into your neighborhoods and pick you up and take you to the polling places because a lot of black people didn't have vehicles. And so yes, that was a big thing for me as a child.
That do you know around like what year that was, or maybe how old you were?
You know what? I don't. I'm thinking 10, 12, somewhere in there, maybe.
What political achievement for Black Americans in your lifetime stood out to you the most or gave you the most hope? And were there any like setbacks that worried you as well?
Well, I don't really have because I'm just finding out. You see, when I was in school, we didn't have Black history. Black history, of, of what I know now about it. So now I don't. Uh, the only thing I knew about was sports a little bit, and like Jackie Robinson went through a lot of crap when he was trying to break in for Major League Baseball. But as far as a lot of the other black things that was going on, I didn't really know about it. Is it known it now or back then? Is what
Um,
this question is about.
just like as it was happening, I guess if you knew like
Yeah,
what was going
I
on.
didn't know it as it was happening, but I found out that, uh, like I said, blacks have always been in a position where if they tried to excel or do anything, the white would always curtail it, stop them. You know, they have paper like Black Wall Street, that kind of thing. Whatever the black town in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the black people were prospering. They had their city, they had everything going wrong. Then they said some black guy said something to a white woman, and they went in there and they destroyed that whole town. They bombed it and killed all the black people and all that kind of stuff. Well, you start finding out stuff like that. But like I found out that I didn't know what was going on. That uh, people that were transporting the hearts, it was a black person that did that
Mm.
for this internet and all this. It was a black person that did that, but they never got the credit for it. Okay, stuff like that that I'm finding out. And I found out a lot of this during Black History Week and stuff like that. But you find out, but while it was going on back in, the only thing I know about baseball is Jackie Robinson, and I knew that black couldn't be head coaches or be in league. Football players couldn't be quarterbacks because that was a leadership position and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And is the country now like anything close to what you may have imagined it would be like for Black Americans, like when you were younger or growing up?
Well, I would say it's better, but I never really thought of it in that way. But uh, it's better, uh, and but the opportunities are still limited. Okay, and it's something like I would equate it to a bottleneck. You know, where traffic it's going to take years. It's been years and years of depression and everything. It ain't just going to automatically change. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but the opportunities are there, and this government, this administration right now has recognized that. For instance, they come in and they like government workers. A lot of them are black. What do? They fired all of them. The government, they were going to let Elon Musk, whatever it was, he was going to trim the. They fired most black government workers. They got rid of them, most of them, and millions and stuff like that. In any position like that in the military, you had black people that were in charge of Grump, they got rid of them. They were officers or generals and all that kind of stuff. They got rid of them. And there, diversity, equity, inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
they got rid of that because they didn't want to give black people or people any avenue to advance. And they claim that the reason things are in bad shape because of the fact that white people were suppressed. They didn't get these positions or whatever, this kind of stuff. That kind of thing. So, but it, you coming up in a society, right? You're learning, okay, and stuff like that. You're in a situation where you kind of see both sides.
Oh, were there any setbacks, like political setbacks, that worried you as it was happening,
Right now? Oh, yes.
or
For
just even like your whole lifetime?
the thing now that is really bothering me is just so blatantly out racist. I mean, it's just out of control. And sometimes I look at it and I say to myself, dang, it's worse now than when I was growing up because they're so blatant with everything. I mean, it's just, I mean, when you have a leader that is, you know, making or helping this to happen, it seems like you just don't have hope. But we do have hope because we do know that this isn't going to last forever. We just have to be patient and stand up for ourselves. That's the thing. We need to vote. We need to get out there and make um, ourself known and stop letting these people walk over us because this is what they've been doing all of their lives and they think this is okay. But we need to stand up for ourselves as a race.
Um, oh, you kind of talked about this, but I said in the past decade, it seems like we've done a 180 from our first black president to over 70 million people voting for Trump in the last election. Um, how do you feel about the political climate over the past 10 to 20 years? And does it resemble any period you lived through? You kind of talked about that as well.
It does.
Or is anything more?
It truly does resemble. You're right. It looks like we just gone 180 because I mean when when we had a black president, they didn't like him I mean, he did everything that he could to help America. But still, there were people, and still to this day, there are people that do not like him, wish him dead, and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't wish anybody dead, even though I don't like him, like you or him. Speaking of the president, um, it's just it's really sad. Here we should be progressing, but we're going backwards, and that's what MAGA wants. It don't want black people to be in charge of anything, which is so sad. Because God created all of us to be equal.
What did you imagine this country would be like for Black Americans when you were growing up? And is the country close to what you had imagined or expected?
That is a good question. Um, I imagine this country would be successful and we would all be getting along. That we would be thriving and that we would be working together. I don't know why. That just what I imagine. I just imagined that's the way it was going to be because that's the way God created it. But it's not that.
Okay. Well, that was one of the last ones. Do you have any like final remarks or anything you feel is worth mentioning? You can tell like a story or just your thoughts on anything.
Well, I just pray that things are going to change. I believe things are going to change. I really do believe that. It's just going to be a long process, and we just have to work. We're going to have to pray. We're going to have to vote, which is the most important thing, I think, is voting. If we get out there and vote, I don't care what they do to try to keep us from it. If we can get out there and vote, things will change. And we let our voices be heard, things are going to change. Because it can't stay the same forever. You might be getting away with something now, or think you are getting away with something now, but down the line, it's going to change. So that's my hope, that's my prayer, and that's what I believe.